Hello, my name is Royce.
And my name is Christine.
In this mini documentary, we will be informing viewers about the great expedition westward by the unforgettable Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery.
What is the historical significance about this journey? Who was involved? Were there any lasting effects or important information retained? These are some questions that will be answered in this documentary. Now, let's begin with how the expedition all started.
The Louisiana Purchase. A year before the journey began, the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, acquired 828,000 square miles of western land for $15 million from the French. This land is known as the Louisiana Purchase in American history. The Louisiana Purchase stretches from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. The reason why Lewis and Clark were sent to go on this mission was to explore the West. But it's more to it than just exploring.
Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the man with a plan. He was the one to call for this expedition. Jefferson wanted the West explored for reasons such as finding a waterway across North America to the Pacific Ocean. Jefferson wanted to learn more about the Western Indian tribes as well as control the rich Western fur trade. When Jefferson enlisted the team of Corps of Discovery, he made it clear that the men should keep relations with Native Americans on friendly terms. Jefferson also wanted reports and samples from the journey.
Who is Lewis and Clark? Meriwether Lewis was a captain in the army that was asked to act as Jefferson's private secretary. Another offer from Jefferson was to lead an expedition into the unknown lands west of the Mississippi River. William Clark, a friend of Lewis, acted as co-commander of the expedition. But a common misconception is that it was only just Lewis and Clark that were traveling. A group of 31 more travelers were with them that ventured off to the west. This group of explorers were called the Corps of Discovery, with Lewis and Clark in charge.
The journey. The two captains enlisted the help of 23 U.S. Army privates and 3 U.S. Army sergeants. Clark brought along his African-American slave York. Lewis brought his dog Seaman. Before setting out, the Corps packed heaps amount of dry goods. For example, more than 500 pounds of goods that ranged from flour and salt to coffee and beans. Lewis packed medicine for the team and materials that were for trading with the Indians, such as colored glass beads, tobacco, fish hooks, and much more. On May 14, 1804, the crew took off into the west with their 40-foot iron-long boat, first starting out into the Missouri River. They would not return from their journey until September 1806 in St. Louis.
The 2-year journey wasn't a smooth sail. They had to face harsh weather conditions, miles and miles of walking that made it unbearable for the team and their horses. Certain incidents with natives that turned violent, as well as the loss of their Sergeant Charles Floyd due to a burst appendix. The team itself would also split later on due to wanting to explore more land, Lewis commanding one group and Clark commanding the other. The Corps would not reunite until 40 days later.
As said before, the journey was harsh, but what made it worthwhile was the journey itself. Lewis and Clark recorded almost every day about their daily lives out in the West. Animals that the Corps had encountered had never before been seen by Englishmen. They met coyotes, prairie dogs, pelicans, and different kinds of fishes. Lewis would go into great detail about the creatures he encountered. For example, if it was a fish, he would describe its measurements, color, and even the number of scales the fish possessed. He was known to sketch the creatures as well, as pictured here.
As stated before, Jefferson urged Lewis and Clark to cooperate with the Indians, to engage trade and learn from them. Lewis and Clark joined the Indians in smoking peace pipes. They also gave the chiefs Jefferson medals as a gift. When the Corps built Fort Mandan near the banks of the Missouri River, their fort was near villages where over 4,000 Indians lived. The natives would visit the fort as well as allow the Corps to visit their lodges. During the winter of 1805 through 1806, the Corps of Discovery built Fort Clatsop near modern-day Oregon to stay there for the winter because of harsh weather conditions. While stationed at Fort Clatsop, Lewis would write in his journal for hours a day, and Clark focused on drawing maps. There was an event that happened some miles down the beach where a dead whale washed up on shore. Lewis and Clark wanted to collect whale blubber for eating and whale oil for cooking. But upon encountering the whale, the Clapsops tribe claimed that the whale was theirs. Lewis and Clark bargained with the Clapsops and exchanged guns and ammunition for the whale parts that they wanted. These interactions with the natives may or may not have gone smoothly if it wasn't for the help of Sacagawea.
Sacagawea's knowledge of the land and the people drove the expedition to success. She was able to distinguish different kinds of plants, poisonous or not, as well as berries that were edible. Encounters with different tribes allowed her to use her skills as an interpreter. During an encounter with the Shoshone tribe, the Corps traded metals, guns, and ammunition for horses and a donkey. It was on this encounter where she reunited with her brother, the chief of the Shoshones. In another encounter, she willingly traded her blue beaded belt to a Chinook chief in exchange for his otter skin robe, only because Lewis and Clark wanted the robe. Sacagawea was also known for her bravery. When the boat of the Corps had flipped over, many valuable items had fallen into the water. Because they were in watertight bags, Sacagawea was able to quickly gather all the materials and save every important item that laid in the water. These items included medicine, instruments, and even the valuable journals that Lewis and Clark possessed. If it wasn't for Sacagawea, who knows what would become of the journals?
The legacy. Today, the story of Lewis and Clark still remains in our American history. They prepared future voyagers for what was to lay ahead in the West. Their Fort Clapsop still stands to this day in Oregon. William Clark's signature is still embedded at Pompey's Pillar. Sacagawea is now represented on the dollar coin. But most of all, their journal has remained synopsis with their discoveries and travels. Although Lewis never got to release his own rendition of his travels, the story of Lewis and Clark will never stop being shared with future generations to come.
Thank you.